There the lights are. Hello, I am Becky Longacre with Health Transformers. I'm your nurse gun coach, and I am continuing on in this series of mine in 2026. I am doing a series on recovering from emotional abuse. So this is very much not just academic knowledge. This is personal experience that I have lived through. So you can check out a few of my other videos on recovering from emotional abuse. It's a playlist that I have on this YouTube channel, Health Transformers Maine. I have talked about talking to the inner child. I have talked about naming abuse. So you have to identify the problem before you can solve the problem. And I have another video where I talk about setting and maintaining boundaries and how to identify if someone is an emotional abuser. So welcome back. This video is all about, you finished the first step. The first step is you have identified that this is indeed emotional abuse. You're no longer afraid to frame it in that way because you know that you need to name the problem before you can solve the problem and take action. This next step that you need to take is get help and set your goals. So you got to act with strategy, and you got to figure out what your boundaries are. And it's very, very helpful to get some sort of professional help in this situation, whether it's a trauma abuse recovery coach, an abuse recovery coach, or a therapist that is expert in codependency or abuse. So in the emotional abusive system, whether it's a family system, whether it's a work system, whether it's a church group system, everybody has their roles to play. You have the golden child who can do no wrong. You have the scapegoat that is blamed for everything in the family. You have the mediator who's always trying to glue people together. You have the flying monkeys who are doing the bidding of the abuser and perpetuating the abuse when the abuser's on vacation. You have these different roles to play. And when the scapegoat or the mediator stop playing their roles because of recovery, because of self-love, then this really destabilizes the system, because the system, this abuse system, is dependent on people playing their roles in order to release the negative energy from the family system or the work group, and not ever really address the elephant that's in the room, which is this: there's an emotional abuse going on. I'm going to close out of something just because I want to look at and improve the bandwidth and the streaming, because I had 5 different tabs open. So review of tactics that the emotional abuser is going to use to try to keep the scapegoat down. And also they try to reel the scapegoat back in so that they can, once again, have this stable family structure that is totally dependent on dominance and control. So examples of how they do this is they artificially create urgent situations to bring the scapegoat back into the system. They artificially create drama and urgency. They play on the scapegoat's sympathies. You are so selfish. Don't you care about mom? Don't you care about this family? They block family members from talking to the scapegoat in order to punish them. They outright ignore them. So the scapegoat tries to communicate and they outright ignore them. They disagree with everything that the scapegoat says, even though the scapegoat has said very logical and reasonable things. But just because they have not had permission to talk, and because they had the audacity to question the abuse, everything that they say will be negated or disagreed with. Triangulation is part of this family system. So telling family members how concerned they are about the scapegoat for their soul, for their well-being. in order to get other family members to believe that this person is not stable, they're not well, they're going to discredit the scapegoat as much as they can. And or family members will reach out because they're concerned about the scapegoat. When the scapegoat starts establishing boundaries and saying no. And that leads me into the next topic, which is they disrespect, they just bluntly disrespect boundaries. The scapegoat is very clear about boundaries. They are not listened to, they are ignored, they are argued with, they are told that they are selfish, they are unreasonable, that they do not respect boundaries at all. There's many other tactics for control, domination, and manipulation, but ultimately the goal of an abusive family system or an abusive workplace system, abusive church group system, ultimately the goal is to dominate and control, discredit, and disempower. Ultimately, that is the goal out of all these tactics. So first step is to name it. So to learn more about that, I do have a link to that video in the description, which is called Emotional Abuse Recovery. Name it. So you can feel free to watch that video. There's a link in the description. So the second step is to get help and to set your goals. So if this has been going on since childhood, this is decades of gaslighting where you can't trust your own reality. This is decades of manipulation where your feelings of sympathy or family duty are absolutely exploited in order to do the bidding of the abuser at the expense of your health and well-being. So it takes a long time to unravel this stuff. And I was 40 years old before I really came to terms with some of the severity of the abuse that I had experienced and been through in my family. So the second step is to get help and to set your goals. I recommend professional help, as I said, either a trauma recovery coach or a therapist that is trained in codependency recovery and or trained in abuse recovery or narcissistic abuse recovery. So you might want to cut them out of your life completely, but for whatever reason, you cannot. Maybe you have a family member that you have to stay connected to this person because you are coordinating visits, you are coordinating care, or maybe this is a job that you need. You're working with a very toxic person. You need to work with them on a project. You need to talk to them on the topic, stay on topic. But you have to stay connected with them. You can't just like cut them out of your life all the time. So my advice there is you minimize the interaction as much as possible because they're going to try to do induced conversation. They're going to try to be buddy with you. They're going to try a whole bunch of things in order to like start the manipulation again. And so minimize your contact with them the best that you can. So in my example, I stopped taking phone calls from certain people in my family. I am not interested in getting roped in to the drama. So I just don't take phone calls from these people. And I have blocked certain people from my family that are absolutely abusive and toxic and not well. So if you can block them out of your life, that's wonderful, but you can't always. And so the next thing to do is to keep the topic always on whatever it is that you need to coordinate care with. So no, I'm not gonna really be interested in the small talk. I'm not gonna pretend like we're buddy. I'm going to focus on whatever it is that we need to coordinate care with, whether it's visiting a relative, whether it's taking care of a child. That's what we're going to be talking about. We do not have this other relationship. We are just going to be focusing on the topic at hand, which is why I'm connected to you. And that's the only reason why I'm connected to you. Don't take their abuse personally. Don't take their behavior personally. If they're doing it with you, they're doing it with other people. Do not take it personally. And when you truly accept that these are abusive people, when you truly can accept that, then your world is not totally destroyed every time they do these tactics. That's a really hard place to get to. That's the honest to God truth. When you truly accept that their goal is to dominate and control you, and they're going to use whatever means that they can, whatever tactics they can, so that when you see them do it and you recognize, because you've trained your brain, you've gotten help, you recognize exactly what they're doing, then your world is not completely destroyed when they use these tactics against you. But that is a really hard place to get to. It is really hard to add insult to injury with this sort of thing. But you can ultimately not be so surprised. Journal is the next suggestion that I have for you. Journal as you are recovering from emotional abuse, because this will help you to see in black and white what it is that they have said through quotes. So for me, I would be in a conversation with people in my family, and I would go to my journal, and I would literally quote what they said in my journal, and I would ask myself, is that reasonable? And then I would ask myself, on my worst day, would I treat someone that way? On my worst day? The answer was no. And then I would ask myself, if I were just asked to do something, I just asked the person to do something. If I were just asked to do something, would I find that to be reasonable? If the answer was yes, that was my realization. They don't want to understand you. They are not interested in understanding you. They are not interested in reconciling with you. They are not interested in a mutual relationship. They're interested in dominating you. That is their goal. So then you got to decide, the next step is you got to decide what your boundaries are, what you can take, what you can't take. Until you identify your own boundaries, you can't protect them. You have to know what your boundaries are in order to protect them. It's vitally important that you understand your boundaries. You establish them, you write them down, you get help and support. So this is where getting help and support is once again very useful, because healthy people in your life are going to reflect back to you, that's reasonable. That is healthy. A reasonable person is going to respect that. So examples of setting boundaries with abusive people: I will not take phone calls from this person anymore, because that ropes me into the drama. I will not be alone with this person in the same room anymore, because no matter what I do or say, they're going to try to create drama. I will include witnesses when I talk to this person or text this person, because I want other people to see exactly how the exchange is happening. So establish your goals. So once you establish your boundaries, you establish your goals. So the example might be, I still want to visit my mother. I need to communicate with this person. I do not trust this person. This person is going to try to rope me into a whole bunch of bullshit. So I am going to text this person about visiting my mother. I am not going to take their calls. I'm going to text them. And if I feel like they are totally blowing me off, totally ignoring me, I'm going to include witnesses to me texting them. You can include a buffer person. If you're trying to go to family events, maybe you need to pick someone up. You can bring someone with you as a buffer person. So it's just, they're less likely to start drama with you when you have a buffer person. And then number 6 is, based on your boundaries and your goals, start making decisions. I do not tolerate coercion and control in my relationships. I will be respected in my relationships. My goal is to still visit my mother, for example, or to co-parent a child, for example. So make decisions and actions that respect your boundaries and your goals. Every action that you take, make sure that your boundaries are being respected and you are meeting your goals. Now, once you start to establish boundaries, that all by itself is going to really, really piss off an abuser and especially a narcissist. So sometimes, no matter what you do, you can sound perfectly logical. You can try to explain yourself all the livelong day. But the simple fact that you've started to have boundaries, it might piss them off enough so that they're going to try to use whatever coercion, whatever control tactic they have to try to put you down. And ultimately, that is the goal of emotional abuse, is either to get you to cave and crawl back, or for them to reject you and isolate you from the family. That is ultimately the goal. So if you can get out, I 100% advocate for leaving the situation. If you can get out, leave the situation. Narcissists, especially narcissists, emotional abusers, but especially narcissists, are broken. They don't have any insight. They don't have the capacity to see your point of view. They don't want to see your point of view. They just want to control you. They want to dominate you. You cannot fix them. So the best thing that you can do is to get out. So I'm going to read off. So it's 6 steps in the end that I've identified here. So one is get help from a professional. So whether it's abuse recovery coach, trauma recovery coach, or a therapist that is credentialed and trained in codependent recovery or narcissistic abuse recovery, get some professional help. Don't take their behavior personally. It is not your fault that they are trying to dominate and control you. Do not take it personally. 3, journal. 4, establish your boundaries and maintain your boundaries. 5, based on your boundaries and your desires, establish your goals. 6, based on your goals and boundaries, establish what you're going to do. Establish your actions and what actions you're going to take. The truth of it is, if it's truly an abusive situation, people are going to leave your life. So we are going to be talking about that. Is the consequences of standing up for yourself are that they are going to triangulate the family. They are going to gossip. They are going to use whatever means necessary to try to hold you down. So you have to accept that as a consequence and get help and find people in your life that are healthy and happy, because you don't want to create a vacuum. Because once you leave these people or they leave you, you want to make sure you still have a social support network at the end of the day. So that is it for this video in my series, Recovering from Emotional Abuse, video number 2, which is get help and set priorities. I'm going to do a few more videos in this series. I'm still creating it, but I'm going to be doing another video in probably a month or so. And I encourage you to watch the other videos and subscribe to this channel. The playlist is called Emotional Abuse Recovery. Take care.